a couple years ago that like the Judgment Day was going to be one of the highlight segments of every episode of Raw.
Who better to play Triple H than Seth Rollins?
Yep.
And for Braun Breaker to be Batista.
Yep. Anytime the ref is counting and half his body's under the rope,
yep. Anytime
something you don't see on camera is about to happen. Welcome to the Lariat Lounge, everybody. This is the home of smart takes, hard hits, real talk. I'm your host, Everson Godfrey, with co-host Andrew Skeens. Skeener, we have had 3 events this week. In the span of a month, I would say, we've almost had like 8 events to talk about. It's a lot.
And we've got another one coming up here in 2 weeks with Money in the Bank. So
as a wrestling fan, I love it. You know what I mean? It's a lot of content, which I'm not complaining about at all. But, you know, as we transition from being fans to, you know, operating a podcast where we're talking about wrestling, recapping requires notes and a conscious effort to try and remember the content of each program. And it's a lot.
It is. I'm finding myself having to go back and give myself little refreshers on things. I did that this morning from Smackdown because by the time it rolls around to record the next week and after the weekend, and especially after you have an event over the weekend, you kind of forget some of the finer details, but that's
yeah.
Could be doing a worse thing than watching more wrestling, I guess.
This is true. And like you said, particularly with Smackdown, right? Because Smackdown is the furthest event away from when we record. And it just behind the curtain, we record on Wednesdays. The episodes go out Wednesday evening. So we're 2 days away literally from the next Smackdown. Right. So sometimes my mind is so far away from where we were on SmackDown. And then potentially specifically when the SmackDown that we're talking about is the go home episode going into a PLE, man, my brain is so far from SmackDown sometimes. But
I'm kind of on the same page with you. I I remembered a couple things from SmackDown, but had to look over the results and refresh my memory a little bit for sure.
Yeah, I definitely did the same thing. But hey, the Lariat Lounge is here. We're back for you all. And we got our socials up. Our social game has leveled up.
We do. You can now find us on Instagram at the Lariat Lounge Podcast. On Instagram, got that up. We're going to be hoping to make it kind of a community collaborative space. I'm going to start throwing a bunch of stuff up on the stories, asking questions. So please give us a follow. Don't hesitate to message. Don't hesitate to interact with the posts and the stories. Because, again, we want to create a community space to discuss and not just have it be me and Everson here. Everyone's welcome in the Lariat Lounge.
Everyone's welcome here. Listen, there's a velvet rope, but there is no limit. All you have to do is be a wrestling fan and want to be a part of what it is that we're doing here. We're trying to build a community with everyone being able to enjoy themselves and have a good time here. So, yes, we've got the socials up now, but, you know, you can also reach us where you can always reach us. You can reach us at the Lariat Lounge at gmail.com if you want to hit us up a little bit more direct. But we do got the Instagram up now. So there's a way to interact that does not require you to bust your email open. So hit us up. Hit us up and jump on that Instagram. Skeener has been working really hard to get that Instagram set up after I did the bare minimum of setting the account up. He's been working hard to get this out there in front of everybody.
I don't know about hard yet, but we're going to get I'm going to ramp it up this week. So hopefully by the time you hear this, we got a little bit of interactivity up there.
Agreed. And this is episode 9, folks. So we're approaching the Big 10. We're about to officially not be little kids anymore. We're about to be big kids. So,
yes, sir.
You know, we're going to put our big boy pants on and tune in because we've got something special for you as a treat for the Big 10, the Big 1-0. I'm not going to divulge the secret. You'll just have to tune in to episode 10 to see what that little special treat is, but it's going to be fun. I know I'm going to enjoy it. I believe Skeener's going to enjoy it. I believe that our guests are going to enjoy it, although we have not told them about each other. And so we'll see how we'll see how that plays out, but I think it's going to be fun. But we also have another little special treat for you, and that is going to be by way of a bonus episode. So by the time we get to 10, there will actually be 11 episodes out. So there will be 11 official episodes, 10 official episodes, but then we'll have a bonus episode. It might be a little shorter than our typical episodes, but it's something that we touched on last week, and I've been calling it in my mind the Trial of Charlotte Flair. It sounds good. What do you think? What do you think about that title?
You can do that. Yeah, I'm down with that. I like that title. I like being. I knew I was going to be playing defense anyways, so I'm happy to call it that.
And listen, it's not going to be a hard case that the state is bringing here at all, because one, I have a lot of love for Charlotte, and the criticism is usually around the character work and how the character is being used. So, you got a little taste of that last week, and we kind of cleared some of the points that we have, but I just wanted us to have a bit of a forum for you all to listen to where that's the focus of the conversation, because I know Skeena and I want to talk about it, and we want to talk about it with you guys. So, but hey, listen, Charlotte definitely has done some things this past week on Smackdown, and the writing, which I have to say, it's got me thinking that they might be listening to this podcast, man. And
I know. I saw we were last week. We were asking about what is this Charlotte Flair character now, and I was asking what is this new version of Alexa Bliss.
Yep.
And lo and behold, I think we opened the show with them doing a little character work. So I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe someone is listening. But regardless, we're posing questions that are sometimes getting immediate answers, and that's a good thing. That's what I like. I like that it seems that we're following along, and then we're getting rewarded and having our questions answered. So I think that's a good spot to be in with wrestling.
Agreed. And listen, as wrestling fans, Andrew and I are no oracles, right? And listen, this is why I love wrestling, just as a full disclaimer, right? Because we can come up here on the Lariat Lounge and we can talk about these things, and we can pontificate on story plot points. We can nail some things. We can truly believe that WWE creative might be listening to the podcast, but I'm also extremely happy when I'm very wrong. And there were some beats this week or over the last 3 events that we were very, very wrong on. And in the best way possible. So let's just cut through the fluff and get to the stuff. Let's jump right into SmackDown, right? So yeah, we open up with Tiffany and Charlotte and Alexa in the ring prior to the first qualifying match on that episode of SmackDown for the Money in the Bank match. So let me levy this first. Actually, you know what, Skeena? Listeners, Skeena texted me before we came on and was like, I'm coming in hot on this episode. So I'm going to cede the floor to my co-host here. Like, I know I was leading with this, but where did you want to go? Because I didn't even ask any questions in our text earlier. But Dave, look, the floor is yours, sir. The runway is clear. Come in hot.
Let's just keep it where we are. And again, watching the show, I thought the same thing as you, or you put it in my head that someone's watching. But immediately when SmackDown opened and I saw what we were opening with, I'm like, oh, we're going to get some of these answers. And while it wasn't huge, I mean, I think it was nice to see Alexa get some time to display some personality again beyond I'm coming out looking like the same Alexa that left, still carrying the Lily doll. I don't think she carried Lily to the ring at first. She had her with her there, later. I still think maybe we need to explain that, or maybe we don't, and maybe I'm wrong. I'd like, hopefully some listeners to chime in on that, how you feel about the Lily doll still being there with like not much explanation. But yeah, it was nice to see Alexa get some of that, that sassy attitude back, for lack of a better term, when she was introducing herself to Tiffany and when she was talking to. And I think we saw some character work with Charlotte coming out there and, kind of, maybe it's tried and true, but that delusional heel character where, she really thinks she's humble and gracing everyone and congratulating everyone. But leading into that match, and hopefully everyone knows by now that, Charlotte did not win that triple threat.
No, she did not.
Julia to qualify for the Money in the Bank. So, maybe that helps assuage some people that, like, Charlotte's not going to win everything all the time. She's not going to, go into Money in the Bank and win Money in the Bank. And I think there's somewhere to go from this, especially with that tidbit we got later in the show.
Ooh, now, before you jump into that.
Yes, sir.
So I am going to be the first person to say that every bit of criticism that I have ever had for Charlotte Flair on screen, I think is valid. Okay. I think that it was measured. I think that it was coming from a place of really wanting to see Charlotte display some layers, some depth of character, and for WWE writing to really invest in giving us something where Charlotte is showing some more dimensions, right? Besides what they typically give us. So in this promo, I thought, and this is my honest opinion, I thought that my first thought was Alexa Bliss is great on the microphone, and I'm glad that they are allowing her to show that personality like we were talking about, because people forget how good she was on the mic, and giving her the ability to talk more now and not be so shackled to the Bray Wyatt thing, at least right now with regards to her being her own person and being able to speak in a storyline outside of what's happening with the Wyatts, right? I think it's good. Allow her to get a little more of her into her promos. So I thought that was great. That was the first thing. The second thing I thought was Charlotte does not, and this is all on screen, so this is not me criticizing the person, everyone who may have criticism, right? This is not me talking about the person. This is talking about the on-screen character. From what is displayed, Charlotte does not know how to handle the crowd when the crowd is not on her side. You know what I'm saying? Like, she does not know how to manage the boos. And listen, there are some people we've seen in the history of wrestling who really know how to handle the crowd when they are not being cooperative to the promo or the segment, etc. Right? There are people who know how to masterfully dodge the what chants, who masterfully know how to dodge the boos or the heckling. Gunther is exceptional at that, and it's so subtle, but he just handles it so well that he shuts the crowd up quickly. And it's nothing overt that he does, but there's a skill there. Charlotte, as a character on screen, seems to lack that, right? The third thing was Tiffany still has a ways to go, I think, with regards to her presence on the microphone. But you can definitely see that she's kind of leveled up a bit since the Charlotte feud began going into WrestleMania. She's trying a little more, and she seems a little more confident. And something makes me feel, Skeener, like some of this could possibly be by design, particularly with Charlotte.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to make sure I knew who and what you were talking about. Yeah, so I'm going to be completely honest. I didn't get the vibe of handling the, kind of handling the crowd like you did. I didn't think there was, anything different than any other segment, especially any Charlotte segment. But then again, maybe I'm still blind to it and used to the reaction to Charlotte. But I will say it's completely valid to say she does not handle that negative crowd in the way, maybe you'd like, that top person to do. And I get that. And we've had, everyone made much ado about the segment leading into the WrestleMania match with Tiffany. I just, and I don't know, and again, maybe I'm deluding myself, but like how much of this is her direction and how much, if there's anything I'd like to see one of those backstage segments on, and I'm not, or not backstage, but behind the curtain kind of shows on.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it on Charlotte and the direction she gets. Because it's almost like, I don't want to say it this way, but like, whose fault is this? Because I really want to know. And again, you have some valid points, but getting back onto it, I do think there's a way to go here. And I'll go ahead and bring it up what I was going to bring up earlier, that
Sure.
just a little segment later in the show
Yep.
to build on Charlotte comes out being Charlotte and she loses this match. And
Yep.
not because of anything underhanded, she just loses. And, now we've gotten kind of back-to-back Charlotte losses, and I'm not sure, and we probably have, but again, at this stage of the character to lose, and now let's see how, in this story, this Charlotte character handles this adversity, and especially walking by Alexa, and Alexa, I think at this point she's talking to Lily and says,
Yep.
"Oh, that's why you'd like to have friends." And I don't think that is like an on accident segment when the week before Alexa interacts with Charlotte and talks to how Charlotte used to be her friend. So maybe we go down the avenue, and I'd like them to, of exploring that, hey, Charlotte, as great as she is, she's all alone. She's been so aloof. She's separated herself, and maybe she finds another side of this character that maybe can have friends, for lack of a better way to describe it. But I'm interested to see where they go. And again, I think we get rewarded for paying attention to stuff like this. Certainly since starting to do this show with you, I've picked up on more stuff that you pick up on, and most of the time we get rewarded for paying attention to these things. So like you, I think we've got an interesting place to go with this Charlotte character. Hopefully.
I hope so too. The thing that kept popping in my mind, Skeena, was it was 2 words: Dark Queen, right? I don't know what that would look like. I don't know what character Alexa could be to Charlotte. I hope and pray that it's more than just friends, right? And not like, okay, wait, pause. Let's take a step back. I don't mean more than just friends like that. I mean, one of the things, the tropey things that we always see in the women's division when they talk about like storylines, the pretty surface level storylines that they throw together for the women all the time, right? They always throw around certain words that they never really throw around a lot with the guys, which is, oh, they were friends and they used to be friends and she's mad about their friendship. And it's always these like interpersonal relationship things that lead to either formations of teams or falling out of teams. It's always the case for the most part. I won't say always, but for the most part, it tends to be that. I hope that Alexa, like we were talking about the other day, I hope that either they pivot fully away from the Bray Wyatt influence on Alexa, or they give it all to her. Give it all to her. Let the Wyatt Six be the Bray Wyatt tribute band, right? Which, hey, tribute band apparently is back on tour now. So,
yep.
Let them be the Bray Wyatt tribute band, and let Alexa take the whole psychological manipulation thing that's on the kind of metaphysical, somewhat pseudo creepy, you know what I'm saying, texture that Bray Wyatt kind of had. Don't lean so heavy into it, because like we said last week, that can be a really difficult balancing act. And I don't think that the win-loss record on that thing is in the favor of the wins. You feel me? So
yeah,
I would say maybe don't go so deep into that rabbit hole, but definitely give her some of that aspect that made the Bray Wyatt character really cool. And in a sense that, like, hey, we used to be friends, right? And now you're losing. You lose at WrestleMania and you're losing at Money in the Bank. The fans aren't with you. You seem to kind of be unraveling a bit. That's why I brought up what I brought up about like Charlotte seeming to not being able to handle the crowd reactions well. There's something with her cadence. There's something with her cadence in the way that she seems to speed up to get to the next thing she's going to say that I notice that wrestlers and performers will sometimes do when they're not comfortable with managing how the crowd responds to them. The people who are more comfortable with it, the people who can handle these type of things, they typically are a bit more relaxed in their cadence and they can take their time more. They're not thrown off by the crowd chants. And so they're able to manage themselves and the crowd's reaction. I don't know if that was by design with Charlotte, but her cadence seemed to pick up when the crowd would boo and she would jump to the next thing she was saying and this and this. And it seemed like somebody who was trying to handle the crowd reaction, and it was very obvious, right? And in my mind, that headcanon goes to this space of, okay, maybe we got something here if they'll lean into it, right? Charlotte is unraveling. She's unraveling right in front of our very eyes, right? The great Charlotte Flair, she's not winning matches. She's losing at WrestleMania. She's not qualifying for Money in the Bank. The crowd has turned on her, right? She can't handle the crowd's reactions anymore. She doesn't really have anything, right? But maybe she could use a friend like Alexa has Lily, right? And maybe there can be some friendship here. And what comes from her friendship with Alexa is this darkening of Charlotte. Not being a heel, right? But a darkening of Charlotte. Like, let's give her some depth. Let's give her some angles. You know what I'm saying? That are not in her character.
Yeah, I'm here for that. I'm hoping that Alexa and Charlotte are the characters that stay together, because I think we've got the seeds of something potentially interesting here. And it doesn't seem like an accident that 2, maybe 3 weeks in a row, but at least 2, that those characters have had some meaningful interaction. I will say, to your Alexa point, to me it seems like, aside from Lily, they're moving her away from the Bray Wyatt space. And
Agreed.
maybe they won't, and maybe they'll bring it back. But it seems to me like, at least for now, like she'll get separated from that. And you use the term shackled. And I think at that point, like, you know, we don't want to shackle her in. We want to be able to bring some of the quote unquote old Alexa Bliss back. And I think this past week was a big step towards that. Now, we also talked last week about, and I was pretty critical of, what are we doing with the Wyatt Six?
Yep.
And here they come, and they show up on Friday. Now, what do? They do the same thing they've always done.
Yep.
I'm going to give it a chance and play it out. But you know what? They came out. They played the same song.
Yep.
Audience still cheered, but are we ever going to do anything but you know, play the one cover song, play the one tribute song? We'll see. I'm still skeptical. What about you?
I am too. Like, that's generally my criticism here, is just that you can't keep playing the hits. And I'm not necessarily just on purpose trying to lean into the cover band, you know, arc that we've been running with, but I like it. So I'm going to continue to keep. Say what?
It fits so well in this situation.
Oh, it does. It does, right? And I'm saying that true because I like the analogy, and I'm going to continue to use it because it does work, right? But also just on a layer deeper, right? With the hits, the crowd is always going to pop when someone returns after being away for a long time, right? So sometimes it makes me wonder if that pop is artificial, right? Like, is the crowd popping for the Wyatt Six because they're so hyped to see the Wyatt Six back? Or are they going to pop anyway? You know what I mean? Like, they're going to pop regardless. Like, I think about the match that they came back in, right? And that was what? Street Profits versus, who was it?
Street Profits.
It was a triple
Street
threat.
Profits and Fraxium. No, it was just Street Profits.
That was right. It was Street Profits versus Fraxium, right?
Yep.
So,
and DIY came and interfered.
That's why I was thinking the triple threat.
Machine Guns came and anti-interfered with DIY, and then the one.
So that kind of, all right. So here's the thing, right? I, like you, am going to always remain open-minded unless WWE really like closes the door on something for me, you know, literally or figuratively. I'm going to keep an open mind. But like we said last week, the Wyatt Six seem to have a limited number of songs that they can play, right? And part of that is because of the type of group that they are. And sometimes when you have these collectives that don't really, well, it's more than sometimes. When you have these collectives that don't really have a lot of divergence within, like with regard to personality within the group, these things don't tend to last very long. Like, they just don't. When people don't have a lot of their own character motivations, you know, it just doesn't really last. Do you remember that group? What was they? Retribution?
Yeah. I had extremely high hopes for Retribution. I love all this kind of borderline corny, campy stuff that you can do in wrestling.
Me too.
I'm always excited when it starts. But I think it just, whether it's the Jimmies and Joes or the X's and O's, sometimes the plays don't work.
First of all, I love that. That was great. I'm going to steal that. But secondly, I agree with you wholeheartedly, right? I feel like part of that worked back in the day. And when I say back in the day, I'm talking about like back in the day of Vince McMahon, the steel barricade around the ring type days, where there would seem to be, and this could be just me romanticizing it in my mind, but there seemed to be tons of tag teams that were all kind of like themed, right? Like you had the Rock and Roll Express, and you had the Rockers, and you had the Natural Disasters, and you had this team and this team, right? On their own, there's not a whole lot of personality between the two of them, right? But when you're in this division of tag teams and you all have these different themes, it's almost like the Warriors. You remember the movie The Warriors?
Yep.
So it always reminded me of that, right? Like you had these over-the-top gangs in this gang warfare, but it all made sense because all these gangs were themed and they were all going after each other, right? It's too many gangs in one area for them to not be in conflict with one another. So the individual personalities meant less than the personality of the collective as a whole, right? When WWE does not have a robust tag team division, then you're forced to focus on a certain number of tag teams that wrestle each other all the time, right? And unless the matches are like 5-star all the time, you kind of lose interest. And even when they are 5-star, like I watched the singles match with Tommaso Ciampa and who was he wrestling?
Sabin.
Excellent match because they're both wizards in the ring, right? But I think we talked about this before, right? It's more than just the quality of the match that'll hook you. And sometimes it's not even enough because that match was really great. And the only part that I can really remember that stands out was that Candice LeRae showed up at the end.
And I here's the thing with the tag, and it's almost like it's completely the opposite of what we've praised about like things happening on Raw, and the Raw tag team division's the same way. So this isn't just a SmackDown problem.
True.
But it's like, okay, these teams are in the tag division, so they only interact with these other tag teams, and we only wrestle this match, or they, you do the singles match between the guys, you do the singles match against the other guy. Like, there's only so much mileage you can get. If they let these characters intermingle outside of this quote-unquote division, I think we wouldn't have that. But again, when you've only got, 4 or 5 tag teams and all they're doing is doing the same conflict for months on end, like you said, the match can be as good as it wants to, but I need a little.
Yep.
And they try, and these guys try with what they're given. But again, the story seems to be just, we're tag team 1, you're tag team 2, so we're going to fight because we're tagged.
Yep.
And maybe, are the Wyatts going to change that? Maybe. Probably not. I'm not super hopeful for it, but at least maybe we can inject something that spices us up, because I'm in the same place that it seems like you are with all this going on.
And the problem is you don't have any real significant tag teams that are going to put the tag team division in the main event picture, right? You just don't have it, because to transition over to Saturday night's main event, we didn't have a single tag team match on that card. And Saturday night's main event is honestly like a glorified Raw or SmackDown, right?
Well, we didn't have a tag team match with tag teams. We opened with Seth and Braun again.
Well, and that's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point, right? Is that the prominent tag team match are made of people who are not tag teams. They're made of the main event card people, right? We don't have a tag team that can fit that build to command a main event spot, even on an event like Saturday night's main event. We just don't have it, right? And we don't have enough tag teams to make for a feud that people are really going to get behind. And like you said, I think it's contrary. It runs counter to the amazing storytelling that we seem to be getting in the singles division. And to be specific, the men's singles division, right? The women's singles division, hit or miss. It's hit or miss. But the men's division seemed to be hitting on all cylinders right now. And, going into the PLE, yeah, we got Seth and Braun versus Sammy and Punk, right? Dude, that match was great. That match was literally great.
Excellent. Yeah, I love all four of those guys, so there was probably not going to be a scenario where that didn't really hit for me. But yeah, I thought they hit everything you needed to. It's just a good fashion wrestling match in the style that I love. And then, of course, we get what you've been talking about is who's going to be this extra guy that comes into this feud, and I think it worked out perfectly with bringing back Brian Reed.
He's a great fit.
Absolutely. And the way they didn't ignore that history leading into, I'm going to now, the opening of Raw, which anytime you give Raw opens up with a top guy with a microphone in his hand, not in his wrestling gear, I'm excited.
For sure.
I'm excited. Some people may not be, but yeah, give me the 15, 20-minute promo.
Yes, sir. Me too.
That's what I want. But I thought that was so good. Again, you can't say enough about Paul Heyman. Like, just laying out and putting over those guys. And not that, Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed don't look like stars. But when they're there and, they just get to sit there and puff up their chest while Paul Heyman's telling you how great they are, that really does just take it to another level, at least for me. And, Braun Breaker, already amazing. He gets that treatment. Now we're bringing in Bronson Reed. And like I said, you tie into, the history with Seth, because there was a time where every week they were beating the crap out of each other. But I think it's such a great beat in this story. And I'm sure you loved it as much as I did, where we turn this into, again, this is Seth saving, where John Cena's ruining wrestling. Seth's trying to save it in maybe what the fans think and what we're supposed to think is a misguided way. But in his mind, he had to save it from the treacherous CM Punk and from Roman Reigns that, did what he did with the bloodline for years. But Seth, ever so graciously is saving wrestling and securing the future. And I love that Heyman hit on that. And I love that that's the angle they can take on this. And that was the segment of this past, however many days. I thought that stole the past week, that opening of Raw.
Oh, I agree. And listen, I did not expect Bronson Reed. That was the last person that I would have considered. But the history that's there that they did not forget, kudos to WWE for continuing to do what we love for them to do, which is not forget, what happened 2 months ago. And I'm not saying that did happen 2 months ago, but what I'm saying is they seem to have they used to have like a 2-month cutoff, right? Like anything that happened 2 months ago, it might as well have never happened. But now they tie all of this stuff in, right? And I love that, like you said, obviously, because we didn't forget what Bronson Reed did to Seth, which is the reason why Seth would want him on his team, right? It's a show of force that obviously he couldn't ignore, right? But then two, you don't want that type of enemy. So better to make him your friend, right? It's smart storytelling from the perspective of a person like Seth Rollins, right? But it's also these breadcrumbs, right? And maybe I'm reading a little bit too much into this, but that's what we do here at the Lariat Lounge. So, I'm not apologizing for it. So I've seen these instances where Heyman seems to be in on what's happening. Seth seems to be in on what's happening. Braun is not. And it's been positioned on a couple of occasions, specifically one backstage segment, right? Where Heyman was talking to Braun about the brilliance of Seth Rollins' plan to have Jey Uso jump the gun and give him a title shot, right? And it was set up as a learning tree moment, right? Look at the brilliance of the leader of this group, which I wish they would get a name. Like, they need to have a name by this point. Let's figure that out. But, it was kind of like a learning tree moment. Look at the brilliance of what Seth is doing. This is what he laid out. He's gotten Jey to jump the gun and do this. and, set up a way for him to get a title shot. And it's brilliant. And you see Braun, he's not playing the dumb jock, but we're watching the gears turn in his head. And it's like, he's almost our way into this storyline. Like, we're watching it through Braun, right? And it's almost like, okay, I guess I see what you're saying there, Heyman. Okay, but then with the situation with Bronson, when Bronson comes in the ring, obviously they do the standoff thing, right? And it was great storytelling to have what they always do, that angle where it's like they look like they're about to go to blows, and then everybody handshakes, and it's like, oh, he was in on it the whole time, right? That's a tale as old as time with that. But when you watch Bronson's face, I'm not Bronson. When you watch, his name is Bronson in real life, but when you watch Braun's face, the look on his face is one of like, wait, what's happening? And you look at Heyman, and Heyman is grinning. He's like, this is excellent. This is excellent. Look at Seth. He's a freaking genius, right? And Seth is just hamming it up with Bronson Reed. And Braun is looking like, wait a minute, what's happening? And then he gets it, and he's like, okay, cool. Look at us. We're getting stronger. I like these little seeds that are being laid out, right? Because I could see a world where at some point down the line, Braun is going to get enough of this. Or he's going to get hip to maybe something that's happening that he's not being made privy to. And, far be it for me to jump that gun, because I'm enjoying what's happening right now. So I'm not trying to talk any of that into existence. And I'm going to leave it there. I'm just saying that for those of us who love the breadcrumbs that WWE is laying in their stories now, pay attention now, because some things I think that we're watching now are going to pay off later on, that you're absolutely going to love, and you'll love it even more when you're like, hey, I think I saw that coming. You know what I'm saying?
1,000% on board. Who better to play Triple H than Seth Rollins?
Yep.
And for Braun Breaker to be Batista.
Yep.
And that's what it goes back to, because that always works. And that can organically get him to be the guy and bring about exactly what Seth Rollins, the character, told you. Is that he's going to secure the future of wrestling.
Yep.
But I don't think, like you, I don't think any of that stuff is on accident. And like you said, not jumping the gun. I want to enjoy the ride, but I think we're getting those little seeds you talked about for a reason.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And listen, those are those little breadcrumbs, right? Those little mustard seeds that they drop, right? That'll eventually grow into something much bigger than this story. And it will grow into literally the future of the business, right? And it's perfect to tie that back into Seth's whole goal of securing the future of the industry. It may not even be in the way that Seth intended, right? But the goal will result the same. The end result will be the same, right? But then there are like other breadcrumbs that they're dropping that are like the size of boulders. And, obviously it's to set up the next program, right? But I'm looking at Cena and Truth, right? So Cena and Truth. So I watched Smackdown specifically because I wanted to see what was going to happen leading into the PLE, right? And Truth cuts a promo, which is kind of what we were talking about, but not exactly what we were talking about. And, he's kind of talking about, John is his friend, but he's not going into this match to wrestle his childhood hero. He's going to try and rescue his friend because, John's misguided. And he won't return my phone calls. And I'm talking to people backstage about, is this weird? And they're like, yeah, it's weird. And so I'm going to go in here, and if I got to, whoop John Cena's butt in order to get him to wake up, then that's what I'm going to do. And obviously, if Cena wins, we riot. So
I love that. I love it.
So, this leads right into the third match on the card, right? Which was it the third? It was the third match on the card because the second was Chelsea versus Zelina.
Yeah. Which
so
didn't make sense at the time, but then it did.
Right.
Later,
and that's what I thought too. When they went on third, the first thing I thought was, oh, okay, so two things right off the bat, right? One, we're certainly not getting a final boss. That ain't happening. That ain't happening midway through the card, right? And two, okay, they're setting up something for later on in this PLE. I don't know what it is, but they're obviously angling at something. Get this out of the way so we can set up the next thing, right? And then it's like it literally happened so quickly. So I don't want to gloss over Truth versus Cena, but there isn't a whole lot there. It was a great match, and I think it does great for what we've been talking about with Cena, just developing this further story to get him through some of these dates, right? But
it served its purpose. Once you saw where they were going, and certainly it was never going to be what I fantasy booked last week, but
right,
you had great moments. R-Truth doing Cena's entrance,
best part.
Cena just stares him down, thinking like, "What is this clown doing?" And then the match is pretty much what you expect, and we get the moment we talked about where Cena's going to hit him with the title, and R-Truth's giving him that look like, "Come on, you're better than this. You're my hero. Don't do this." And then Cena, goes for the low blow after the ref takes the title. And
now hold on. Now don't gloss over the fact that Ron gave him that look, and Cena plays it up like, "Damn, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
You're right, man. Like I don't need to do it like this." And then he hands the ref the title, and as the ref's back turn, he swings for the balls. You know what I mean? And connects with both of them, and hits the AA, and the match is done. Now I will say this too. One thing I noticed was when Truth came out, and it's funny, the juxtaposition is so much more subtle than like if Cena had turned full heel and had heel entrance music and changed his attire. It's very subtle because when Cena's music hit and he came out originally, right? I'm always taking in his heel entrance, right? Because I like the minimalist aspect of it. When I remember thinking to myself, okay, so R-Truth's going to come out next. I remember thinking to myself, why did Cena come out first? Is that a thing that is like a nostalgia thing that the champion came out first? Because why would they bring Cena out first? It doesn't make any sense, right? And as much as we beloved R-Truth, his music's not the best. It's super dated. And so I'm thinking, okay, so Truth's music's going to hit. When Cena's music hit again for a split second, Skeener, I was like, oh, somebody in the truck messed up. I was like, somebody in the truck messed up. But then when the video package came on, I was like, oh, we're doing Seth Rollins Shield stuff. Okay. And then he comes out dressed fully as Cena. And did you see he had like his own Ron Cena shirt?
Yeah, Ron Cena. But it's perfect. It's like, the John Cena I love is gone, so I'm going to come out and show him how to be that John Cena again.
And so there was a split second where it looked like on John's face, he was kind of like, it was one of those scenes where I was thinking, okay, is this going to be one of those plot points we were talking about? Where it's like Cena sees who he used to be. And maybe eventually it'll still be that. But it was a great beat altogether. And it just kind of served to further the story and also leave so much of it ambiguous that it's going to keep us guessing. And I like that.
Yeah. And as a little aside, nothing to do with the story, but man, it had to be hard for John Cena to keep a straight face when Arthur's doing his whole entrance and doing the salute and the run and all that. I noticed they kept the camera off Cena, and I think that was strategically because it had to be hard not to break there. But
you don't want him to break.
And that leads us right into John C&J backstage. And man,
yes.
We didn't predict it, or at least I didn't predict any of this, but as he started talking and you could see where he was going, it makes so much sense. Because what would ruin wrestling for people more than Logan Paul being the world heavyweight champion? And as John said, as he leaves with the WWE title and the only champion you're left as he YouTuber. Said, and yeah, I can't believe I hadn't thought of that, but again, it makes perfect sense. So, I mean, not a whole lot of a segment. He kind of just spelled out the plot for us, but I thought that was.
I remember thinking to myself, and I didn't think it to myself. I said it out loud. I'm sitting downstairs, I'm watching the PLE on the 60-inch. My wife is sitting down there with me, and that segment comes on. I lie to you not. I sat up and I said to myself, yo, Skeener better not have been right. Like, I almost text you. But I remember you were on vacation, and I was like, I'm not going to mess with this dude on his vacation. But I remember thinking to myself, please don't let Skeener be right. If there's one time that I would want him to be right, it's not right now. But when he did that segment, I thought to myself, okay, so now there's an opening here where Jay could drop the title, right? And then sure enough,
once Cena got involved, I was like, they might do it here.
Dude, when Cena pulled the ref out of the ring, so let's just jump ahead, right? So Jay and Logan go on. They have a good match. Jay is good. Logan's good. They have a good match. Despite what you think about either of them for specific reasons that are specific to each person, they had a good match, right? But when the ref, listen, it's all about knowing wrestling, right? When you watch wrestling as much as we do, as much as I'm assuming people who listen to this podcast do, you notice certain things. There are always telltale signs, right? Or telltale, that's what it is. Telltale signs of what's about to happen based on camera work and position. Anytime the ref is counting and half his body's under the rope,
yep,
something you don't see on camera is about to happen. And sure enough, he's counting 1, 2, and his lower half of the body, he wasn't paying attention to where his lower half was, right? But it was out the ring. Because if he was paying attention, he would have seen Cena come up behind him and yank him out the ring. The second he did that, I thought to myself, damn it, Skinner's right. I hope he's not right.
Just another little thing. The ref pullout obviously bequeathed to John Cena from our tribal chief.
True.
A staple in his matches, and he's so graciously given it to John.
Yeah. So he gets yanked out of the ring, and then he just starts going to work on Jay. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, something's got to happen here. Because I don't think they're just going to give it to Logan like this. I really hope not. And honestly, we were also talking last week. It was just a random part of our conversation we were having. And I think I said it was something along the lines of like, I wonder who's going to come back first, right? Is it going to be the final boss or Cody? Because we haven't seen Cody yet either. And sure enough, here comes Cody out of nowhere to save his bro, right? And then just randomly, he's like, so I see you got a partner in Logan. Well, I've got a partner in my brother. And we'll see you all at Money in the Bank. I'm like, well, I guess Cody has the ability to make matches even when he doesn't have a title. Because I don't know who called that one. But apparently he can call his shots like that.
Yeah. And, I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see where they go. The match will be good because of who's involved. I think there's a lot of interesting avenues we could go down. But, we haven't seen much follow-up on any of that as of now as we're recording. But we've got Cena and Cody scheduled for Smackdown this week on the 30th. So We'll see where that goes. But I love how this and the creation of this match and this entire deal with, Jay and Logan, Jay and Cena, now this tag match. Again, we talk about weaving stories and weaving different characters in. Jay's coming out to kind of talk about this match on Raw, and here comes Gunther.
Yep.
And again, maybe in years past we would have got, Gunther just disappears and he forgets he wants the title for a bit. But not only does that not happen where he comes out and says, hey, Jay, I'm still here. And now it leads into the story of, Jay, you don't know how to be a champion. And part of being a champion is not spreading yourself too thin.
Yeah.
And they immediately started playing into that. He's like, Jay, you protect your friends, you help your friends. You're going to have this big tag match at at Money in the Bank here in a couple weeks. And then I think it's on a Saturday. So 2 nights later, you're going to defend that title against me. So you've got all sorts of priorities when it should just be this title. And now you get to thinking, is that going to be Jay's undoing? But again, I think that's just masterful storytelling from WWE to use one story to benefit another. And again, we always talked about how we like how things intertwine and people commingle from different stories. And I thought that was awesome. When he came out and said that, I'm like, that makes perfect.
Well, yeah. Well, and look, it leads us right into the closing angle on Raw. And I'm not going to wrap up Raw because there's something else I want to talk about on Raw as well. But I want to get to this because it ties right into what you were talking about, right? In the closing angle of Raw, right, we've got qualifying match for Money in the Bank. Finn, Sammy, and Seth, right? That is an incredible match, just hands down, right? All participants, incredible in the ring. Match was great. Love every second of it, right? Of course, we're going to get shenanigans from Seth's squad who come in, and because it's triple threat rules, I guess, because there's no disqualification, it's perfectly fine for people to just interfere, which I've always thought that was weird, right? If there's no rules in a triple threat match and it's okay for people to just interfere, I would never come to the match by myself if I had a stable. Like, there's no way you're winning this match because we're going to mess you up from the very start, and I'm going to win every triple threat.
Yeah. I think that's part of the wrestling contract. You just have to accept it.
It is. You have to wait until the last quarter of the match before you can interfere. It's part of the contract that they signed to. It's like, hey, interference can only happen in the last 2 minutes of the match. So hold your horses, wait backstage. And when you see them throw the first punch that's after the first quarter, you can come down to the ring. So, we get the triple threat. Seth's entourage, I don't know what to call them, come down to the ring and they interfere in this match, right? And like you were saying, then here comes Sammy's backup, right? Oh, no, Judgment Day come out first.
Yeah.
And Dom tries to slide the chair in the Finn. And, Judgment Day, look, for all the good things that they do, all the praise that we heap on them, which I absolutely love to do because I love the Judgment Day, right? These guys cannot throw weapons in the ring correctly to save their lives.
Here's the thing, though. And so I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to bring it up to you. You said, I think a couple weeks back, talking about, Dom noticing Finn's not really trying to help him. Dom slid that chair, and I don't know if it was Cole or Pat, but one of them said, oh, man, that's not a very good chair throw. And my mind goes to, is that on purpose? And
we'll get to that.
And yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up.
We'll get to that. That's what I'm saving for last. I have no intention on skipping over our beloved Judgment Day. But I wanted to jump to this because, like you were saying, then here comes Jay jumping over the barricade on the Bronson, right? And it's like, dude, how thin are you spreading yourself? How right are you making Gunther, right? Mm-hmm. That, you want to play the hero, the guy who's friends to all your friends and you stick up for your homies. But all of these people, not that they're not your friends and not that they don't have your back, because they absolutely do, but they have their own endeavors and you're the only one that's carrying a championship. You are the person who's got the most to lose. You know what I'm saying? And you're out here and you're doing this tag match. And now you're also dealing still with Seth and his people. And if Seth wins that Money in the Bank, he's gunning for you, right? He's gunning for you. So you're out here trying to help your friends with that and you're taking lumps for them. You still got to contend with me. You're spreading yourself so thin. And when push comes to shove, one of these people who are your friends are not going to be there when you need them. And he didn't say that, but that's the next logical step that I took from that, which is, at some point, you're going to be in a position where your back's going to be against the wall and it's going to be you either getting the victory and remaining champion or you losing and you're no longer the champion. And no one's going to show up for you. Maybe not because they're trying to, stand off away from you, but they can't. They're embroiled in their own things. And they're not going to show up for you. And then you're going to take the L and you're going to lose.
Yeah. I mean, and again, that's why I use the term masterful, because I think it was. Like, it just makes so much sense for Gunther to say that. And then you see it play out later in the night. And, they're leaving it there. And now everyone's got to think, are we setting up for Jay to lose because of this? And we haven't even gotten into, Jay's got to focus on this big tag match. And then he's got, again, I know I said it already, but then he's got Gunther the next night. I'm really impressed with, and it's basic storytelling, but they're doing it so well.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm really enjoying everything going on at I guess we can call it the top of the card, especially on Raw. It's so seamless and interconnected and just really, really.
I think Jay is going to keep the title, and I think he's going to drop it to whoever wins Money in the Bank. I think that cash in, which is typically longer held for the men and shorter for the women, I think that that's going to kind of flip, at least for the men. I think whoever wins that Money in the Bank, I don't think they're going to hold it long, and I think they're going to cash in on Jay. I don't see Jay losing that title to Gunther. I think he's going to beat Gunther, right? Because I feel like somebody is going to cash that title in on Jay when Jay has no one, right? When his friends don't show up, he's going to get cashed in on. And I also think that this is going to give us something to maybe do between now and August or whenever SummerSlam is, because I could see an angle where we get Jay versus Sammy in some way. Like, I just keep seeing these hints, not hints, but you see these scenes where it's like Jay and Sammy showing up for each other, right? Having each other's back. And it's very expressed. Like, yeah, Cody showed up to help Jay too, right? But it's been very expressed backstage, this thing about with Sammy and Jay, where it's like, yo, if they gang up on you, I got your back. And then Sammy will say the same thing, right? So it leads into this idea of Jay spreading himself too thin, getting involved in too many things. And we do need to figure out a way at some point to split this thing away from Sammy and Punk and Seth and what's happening, because Seth is going to zero back in at some point on that World Heavyweight Championship, which is held by Jay. And I don't think that per se Seth is going to win Money in the Bank. I feel like I don't know who else is going to end up being in that match. We know some people who are in it now, but like I don't, as sad as it is, I don't see it being LA Knight. And who else is qualified?
Solo and
did Jacob
Solo LA Knight. I think it's just Solo LA Knight and
Seth.
Right.
So of that current roster right now, Seth is the only one who could win it, right? So let's say they did put it on Seth.
Penta.
Okay, so, and listen, as much as I love Penta, they're not throwing him in that world championship scene yet. Not with all the stuff that's going on right now. So I think Seth could win it, right? And look, Seth could pull off another heist, right? They've already spoken about that too, right? So he could pull off another heist when Jay spread too thin and his friends are not going to be there. And it'll give him something to do to maybe kind of put a rift between him and Sammy before, that happens. And then Jay loses the title, right? And then maybe there's some misguided blame there between him, by Jay towards Sammy for not being there. And then you move into your next, your next event, which is Sammy and Jay. And it's got a lot of emotional stakes that don't require the title, right? But that scene is so stacked and the story is being told so well, right? And I wanted us to get to that because I honestly, bro, wanted to save the last 25 minutes in my mind to talk about my favorite part of Monday Night Raw, the Judgment Day. Like, who would have thought a couple years ago that like the Judgment Day was going to be one of the highlight segments of every episode of Raw?
It's just, again, and I think it comes from they just put them on screen.
Yep.
And they let everyone be there and they let them do something.
Yeah.
And again, sometimes it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. But I will say, watching Raw this week, I was more entertained by the few mannerisms and maybe 15 total words that Raquel Rodriguez said and what she did than I have been by her in her previous main roster tenure.
Agreed.
And, just her walking behind Liv and, gesturing to Kyrie and saying all that stuff. Like, again, I go back to people can create characters and get the audience invested in those characters just by doing those things. And for me, all that really hit this week.
Oh, I agree. And listen, that's what we said before. And when we were talking about what the Judgment Day represents, right? It's a great place for people to go in order to flesh themselves out, right? They're talented, but there are edges that need to be rounded off. You know what I'm saying? And they need some refining. And you put them in this stable where you've got a veteran, or you got veterans in Finn Balor and Carlito, right? And allow these guys to take these younglings, you know what I'm saying, and turn them into Jedi. And it's a great place to position people. I think Dom has benefited so much, right? You've had Damian and Rhea who have graduated, right? And now you've got this next crop of JD and Dom who are, upperclassmen right now, Liv, Raquel, who are upperclassmen, right? And now you've got Roxanne, who's the new freshman coming into the Judgment Day. And I agree with you 1,000%. Raquel Rodriguez has been the biggest beneficiary of being in the Judgment Day. She has gained so much character that she just did not have, and confidence in that character that she just did not have. And you're seeing what WWE is allowing to transpire, right? Because Liv Morgan is back. I love Liv. I love me some Liv. And I've loved me some Liv since the Riot Squad. And back then I loved me some Liv, but you would have never guessed the way that WWE was positioning the Riot Squad, that not only would Liv be the breakout star, but she'd be the only one left, but history has shown that, these things can happen. And Liv has just become the breakout star, if not by proxy of being the only one left from the Riot Squad. But she has such great mannerisms and just great understanding of character work, right? That it's hard not to love her, right? And so she comes back and you run the classic angle, right? I mean, super classic. You bring Daddy Dom a whole tray of chicken nuggets. I mean, it's a platter of chicken nuggets. And, he's already entrenched by the nugs, right? And then she's like, oh, your shoulders look tight. Let me get that for you, right? And the second the massage starts to happen, you hear Liv off screen come in. I can't remember what she says, but it was so Liv. And I was just like, oh, thank God she's back. Like, it's so great. Not that they were a miss without her, right? But I just love Liv. And so when I heard what she said, it was just like, oh, that's so Liv. She's back. And then of course she walks in on like the it's not what it looks like kind of scene.
Yep. Yeah. And Finn's grin after that scene where that's what he's turned into, is just he just loves the chaos of it all. But I love how you spoke about the veteran presence, but they almost blend that into the story of, like, you had Dom and Rhea and Liv, and now Liv and Roxanne. And it's always been funny to see Dom as like the young kid, around all these girls and women, and he thinks he's, hot stuff and doing all this, and the old guys are always like, you better watch yourself, kid. And I've always loved that, just that kind of angle there. But like you said, Judgment Day, it's always entertaining to me.
Yeah.
And again, they don't have to have 30 minutes of the show to do it. They can do it just in those little backstage segments. And I think there's a novelty, I guess, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, to a group that has for so long with Rhea and now with Liv, because of their talents and how big of stars they are. But you have a group that is dominated presence and almost star power wise by the female in the group. And that's a fun dynamic. It's still a new dynamic to play off of in wrestling, especially. And Liv does it in a different way than Rhea did because they're different characters. But just like you, I love Liv so much. Having that character and that, that personality and presence back in that group is only going to help.
Oh, I agree. And listen, to Finn's credit, and to Finn as the presence he is in this story, right? He is always the person who, in the Judgment Day, ends up having beef with people in the Judgment Day and then setting things up in the background to have them fail, right? It's the same thing that he did with Liv originally, right? With the Judgment Day, like we spoke about the other day, right? It's the same thing he's doing with Roxanne. It's the same thing he did with Damian. You know what I'm saying? It's like he's playing this role of like the guy who is always jealous of other people's success. And he has not let go of the fact that he was the first Universal Champion and got robbed. And, and it's like he is just jealous. He can't let anyone else have any type of shine whatsoever. And so he'll just sabotage it. And that little cackle and that little smile he had in the background was just indicative of somebody who's like, yeah, screw your shine. Like, it was excellent. So then we get Liv in her match, and who was she wrestling? It was
Kyrie.
Yes, Kyrie. She was wrestling Kyrie. And yes, to Raquel's credit, when Kyrie gets the match backstage, she walks off and Raquel is like, that's your mistake, girl.
Yep. And again, little things like that, I love.
It's like little things like that.
You can turn me into a fan for life with just little stuff like that. And
it's the character work,
that's
man.
Exactly what I would say with Raquel this week.
It's the character work. It's those little things that give people personality, that flesh out characters, right? It makes you care. And when done well, it lands like that. Raquel, I think, is positioned to come out of this looking like a star because you see what's happening, right? She goes out here, and obviously all of this is being guised under the machinations of Finn, right? Sowing these seeds of discord, of discourse, I should say. And he's sowing these seeds. And what happens in the match, right, is Roxanne gets involved, pushes Kyrie off the top. But then Raquel and Roxanne are beefing, and Liv gets distracted, takes a little too much time, right? And Kyrie takes advantage of maybe a botched oblivion, right? And rolls her up for the pin. And then we get the second backstage segment where it's aimed at Roxanne, but then Liv turns and it's like, well, actually, Raquel, you're the senior person here. You're the vet. You should have known better, right? And it's one of those things where on a meta level, as a wrestling fan, it's a thing we talk about all the time, right? Which is something happens outside the ring. And for some reason, right, the person who's in the match has to be captivated by what's happening outside the ring, right? But then on the level of the storytelling, yeah, it makes perfect sense. Raquel, you should have known to not have been a distraction, outside the ring, because you know that I, as a wrestler in the ring, am going to be captivated by what you're doing. Why would you do that? And you're laying these seeds where Finn is going to be the manipulator, right? The instigator of not only destroying the situation for Dom by way of Roxanne, but also she's going to destroy Liv. He's going to destroy Liv and Raquel's relationship. Liv is a star, right? And I think you'll get a point where Raquel and Liv are going to have a falling out. And who is going to come out as at least who is positioned by the company as being the baby face in that feud? It may be hard to get over because everybody loves Liv, right? But they're going to position Raquel as the baby face.
Seems like that way right now. And
she's going to be the Diesel to Liv's Shawn Michaels.
I could see that.
I see that too. I really see that. Originally, when Raquel was put with Dakota Kai in NXT, I remember texting one of my buddies like, I think this is gonna end up being HBK. And I was very wrong about that. But it's funny that we get back now to, Raquel being the Diesel to someone else. And it's a tried and true, and I feel the exact same way, especially with the seeds they were laying here on Monday.
So what happened? So what if we get something like that legitimately, right? Like I'm not saying we do something exactly identical, but I'm trying to think of a way to get heat on Liv, like heel heat. Not people will dislike her because people are going to love Liv regardless, right? But how do you put sympathy on the babyface in order to get someone to react to the heel in the way that contractually, as an audience, you want them to, right? As wrestling booking, and we're no bookers, but I feel like you have to do something that is heelish, very heelish, in order to garner the type of fan reaction to the babyface that you want in order to make the feud work. And Shawn, and when I think about Shawn turning on Marty Jannetty, when the Rockers broke up, right? It was the infamous barbershop scene, right? And it was just Shawn going full heel and just attacking him in a way that seemed kind of telegraphed, from the onset. And it's like you just knew that it was coming. But I don't even remember what happened between Shawn and Diesel. I just know that at one point, Diesel was Shawn's heater. And then, they had a breakup and then they, had some great matches. But I don't even remember what happened between them.
Well, Diesel kind of just started organically getting cheered.
Yeah.
And then he won the title. And, it kind of went south in that relationship. From there. But I think with Liv and Raquel, Liv's good at it. Just have her say some really, really mean shit to Raquel. And I think that'd work.
You could do that.
Just go out and say mean stuff about her. Have her get fed up. Have Raquel cost him a match or, the tag titles or something like that. And just have her say mean stuff. I think sometimes you don't need to overcomplicate it. I think that would be enough in this situation.
True. Or you could based on what you were describing with Diesel and Shawn, you could do a similar play. Now that you've got more women's titles in play, you don't have to put Raquel in the main event title picture, right? You can put her in a situation where she's going up against Lyra Valkyria. At some point, that title, that feud between Lyra and Becky has got to run its course, right? And Lyra needs another opponent. It could be a situation where you have some sort of qualifying situation. Or if they haven't finished the Money in the Bank stuff, maybe Raquel gets in it and wins, right? And it's like you start planting these seeds.
There's still spots. Yep.
There's still spots, and you start planting these seeds of jealousy between the two of them. And you can still have them with the Judgment Day. You could have Finn fanning the flames of jealousy. You know what I'm saying? Like, it could work. But that's just the beauty of great storytelling. And the fact that the Judgment Day has just been genuine facilitators of wonderful storytelling and a place for people to, foster what they've got going on and to grow stories in a way that they wouldn't be able to do on their own. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you put it very well a couple weeks ago, it can be a home for those temporarily without a home. And then everyone seems to come out looking better, at least so far. It's done a lot. It's done a lot, and I think it's underappreciated for how much and how long it's almost been the glue that holds Raw together.
Yeah, agreed. And we still have so much to come from that, right? Because I was literally thinking, we need to light a little fire again back under the Intercontinental Championship. Dom has it, but obviously his next contender for that title is going to be Finn. It's got to be. And
we'll see. Things are so open that there's a lot of ways they can go. There's tons of ways. And that's what I like. It keeps us guessing for sure.
This is true. But and look, I am happy that wrestling has given us so much to think about and so many different angles to kind of ponder on and to process from week to week. I'm genuinely happy that there's not a PLE this weekend.
Yeah, we get a nice long 2-week break.
We get a nice long 2-week break, and next thing you know, we'll be doing another go home episode because it's only 2 weeks until Money in the Bank, right? Mm-hmm. Goodness gracious!
Yep. 2 weeks, and before we go home here, because I know the ref's giving us our cue, and we gotta go home here soon. But I wanted to get your take. You spoke about lighting fires under people and intercontinental titles.
Yeah.
We're getting a little bit deeper into Becky and Lyra, and kind of what we're seeing is what I think we both predicted, in that giving this adversity to the Lyra Valkyrie character is bringing out another side in her. You saw her, talking about, beating Becky's face in or whatever she said, like kind of, getting a little more of that edge than we thought. But you brought this up earlier with Tiffany, and I wanted to see if you felt the same way I did watching the segment with Becky and Lyra. Yeah. When Becky came out, and I'm admittedly a gigantic Becky Lynch fan.
Sure.
Think she's incredible. And she's on the mic there. To me, it's very clear there were people on two different levels.
Sure.
in terms of working the character and just the mannerisms and the cadence and the timing. And you hit on that in the other women's division. And I'm not being too critical because I like where we're going with Lyra, but it's almost I just want to still and repeatedly give Becky Lynch her flowers because she was a star on Monday, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. Dude, like Becky's on another level, and Becky's on another level in comparison to all of the women that we spoke about in both of these segments. I think she's just on another level, particularly when it comes to, the microphone work. She's just on another level. And so, yes, I think Lyra has absolutely benefited from her interactions with Becky, more so than Tiffany has with Charlotte. I think it's one of those things where it's part veteran in the fact that Becky, in my opinion, is just better on the microphone than Charlotte. And I think that part of it is that Lyra, as the quote unquote rookie, right, in this equation, Lyra is better base level on the microphone than Tiffany. And so I think you have those two factors together. And yeah, I think if the roles reversed and you had Becky as the vet to a Tiffany Stratton, I don't know if you'd get the same thing out of Tiffany. I think that Tiffany is a different person. She's got a different personality, and maybe she's got a gear that we have not seen. And I'm not trying to take that away from her, but we just have not seen it yet. And so I'm not going to attribute something to her that we haven't seen. But
and again, maybe this is maybe using Becky Lynch as the bar or the comparison is probably grossly unfair to a lot of other performers, but not only just in her skill, but she's had this character and been able to take it through all these trials and tribulations and being a good guy and a bad guy. And when you get that history, and like we like to call it the equity with the audience, there's so many more places you can go. And
for
history you can draw on. And I think Becky really, really takes advantage of all that. And that's why she's so good. And I enjoy every time I see her out there with a microphone, because I know, to me, it's going to be something special and entertaining.
I don't disagree with you at all. I think when it comes to the four horsewomen, I'll say this and then we'll wrap. I think of the four horsewomen are Becky's and our Sashas and our Charlottes and our Baileys, right? If I had to tell you at the time who I thought, when they were all four in the same company, who was the top build star of the four horsewomen, I think it would be very close between Sasha and Charlotte. Mm-hmm. I feel
no disagreement.
I feel like there were a lot of people, some who we know, who truly believe that Sasha was the best of the four horsewomen, that she was the best wrestler.
Full disclosure, I was one. I thought there was a time in late in her NXT run where Sasha Banks was my favorite wrestler on the
Sure.
Because she was that good.
Okay.
And a topic for another time to delve into.
It could be
the Sasha Banks saga.
Listen, honestly, I feel about Sasha, not in the same way that you feel about Charlotte, but I feel strongly about Sasha the way that you feel about Charlotte, in that I think, hot take, actually, you know what? I'm going to save it because, there's a chance that Mercedes could listen to this podcast one day, and I love her as a person. So I'm not going to say what I was going to say because I have all the respect and love in the world for her. But I do not agree that she was the best wrestler of the four horsewomen or that she was the best wrestler in the world. I don't think she ever was. And
I don't think she was. She was my favorite with that boss character for a time.
Yeah, the boss character was awesome. We'll discuss this again another time. In fact, it probably will come up in the trial of Charlotte Flair, because I'm sure the horsewomen is part of that conversation. So tune in for the bonus episode, everyone, because that one's going to be chock full of some of this stuff that we allude to and that we haven't gotten to in this episode because we're saving it for the bonus for you all. But Skeener, can you tell the good folks that are about to exit where they can reach us?
Feel free to reach out, email at the Lariat Lounge at gmail.com. Now you can find us on Instagram at the Lariat Lounge Podcast. Going to be getting some content up there. As always, find us on YouTube. Find us wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, any other platform. We're out there. But please, please let us know your thoughts. Be interactive. That's what we want. We want to make it a community. Everybody is welcome here in the lounge, so pull up a stool.
We love you guys here. We have a whole lot more content coming for you guys going into the coming weeks. Bonus episodes. We're rounding the big 1-0, so we're turning into big kids. So come back, hang out with us. We got some special stuff coming up for you. From my co-host, Andrew Skeens, I'm Everson Godfrey. This is the Lariat Lounge. Please watch yourself on the way out.